Anyway, I'm here.
So welcome to this event, this special event we have organized to welcome Dr. Swami, Subramaniam Swami to San Diego. And we will start with a small, very traditional Indian way. We'll light a lamp, and we have a priest who will do he'll take a couple of seconds, and he will introduce with some mantras, lighting of the lamp. Sudarshan. Yes. Pradeep ji.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Deepan Jyoti Paranjyoti. Deepan Jyoti Namostute. Deepena Harate Papam. Sandhya Deepa Namostute. Om Ram Jagat Jyoti Rupaya Namaha. Iti Deepam Prajvalya. Avahita Deepa Mahalakshmiyai Namaha. Sustira Bhava. Hari Om. Shanno Mitra Shamvarunaha. Shanno Bhavatvaryaman. Shanna Indro Brihaspatihi. Shanno Vishnur Rukramaha. Namo Brahmane. Namaste Vayo. Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi. Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahma Vadishyami. Hritam Vadishyami. Satyam Vadishyami. Tanvam Avadu. Tadbhaktaram Avadu. Avaduman. Avadu Bhaktaram. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sahana Bhavatu. Sahanau Bhunaktu. Sahaviryam Karavavahai. Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. This chant is a Vedic Shanti mantra from Taittiriya Upanishad of Krishna Yajurveda. Shanti mantras are also known as peace mantras. Chanting of these mantras calms the mind of the person who chants it and also the people who listens it. These mantras always ends with 3 times a Shanti. The reason is to remove any hindrances in 3 states, which are namely physical or Adi Bhautika, divine or Adi Daivika, internal or Adhyatmika. Om Shanti, 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 Hari Om.
So, thank you, Sudarshan Bhattarji, for doing this mantra prayers. I'll have to move this a little bit behind. So now we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance, and after that the National Anthem of India, and after that India is a guest country. Dr. Swami represents member of the Indian population. So, and after that we'll have National Anthem of US, and after that I'm going to welcome Mayor of National City to give a small speech in honor of the visiting dignitary. Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. शुभ आशीष मांगे, गाहे सब जय गाया, जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता, जय हे, जय हे, जय हे, oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that her flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner wave o'er the lands of the free and the home of the brave?
I would like to thank you all. I would like to invite the mayor of National City to invite Dr. Swami and speak a few words. Thank you.
A little taller than her. Thank you so very, very much. You know, it is an honor for us within our city to have Dr. Swami come here. I know I was with him this morning, and to be here again this evening with this group. And you know, when you look through the history and everything, in our country, like myself, this is my 25th year in elected office, and I'm considered a dinosaur. You know, and then I take a look. Dr. Swami first was in elected office in 1974. Okay. Okay. You know, you're talking about a huge lifetime of dedication and of service to his community, and that is beyond awesome. But you know, we have our two countries, and certainly the United States is a very young country in comparison to India. Remember what happened in 1492? Columbus went searching after what? India. And when he landed on an island there in the Caribbean, he saw people. He says, well, those must be what? Indians. Okay. So India was very well known, very well established, and the idea of a United States of America was centuries away yet. You know, and so you have a country as India that has this remarkable history. And it's a shame a lot of times here in the United States we don't spend a lot of time with history of other countries as much as we should, because we have a lot to learn from other countries, and certainly here also. But then when you have an individual like Dr. Swami, who's with the what we refer to as the House of Elders there in India, and as I mentioned this morning, as I was reading some stuff about him, one of the things that I found was fascinating was that he decided he wanted to learn Chinese. And he was told that if you really dedicate yourself, I mean, you really put yourself all into it, it takes you 12 months to master Chinese, to really put it. He did it in 3 months. I'm still working on English. You know, so, and the other thing is, you know, I noticed, of course, when he first got involved with government, he was not necessarily well liked. There was a lot of people in power that disagreed. He wanted to bring a business model. He wanted to bring an economics model to help India and bring it out from where it was at and bring it into a newness. And they were going, no, that doesn't work. That won't work. And and to a lot of people, especially when the government starts getting against you and starts telling you, guess what, we're going to strip you of some things, we're going to take away positions, everything else, a lot of people go, okay, I'll back off. I'm going to take the easy road. It was great to see that Dr. Swami didn't do that. He persisted. He kept on and saying, these ideals work. These concepts can make a difference. And he pursued it till he got into a position where he could actually make that difference. And he could become a minister. He could become, and then into the House of Elders. And to be able to bring forth these ideas, and look what has happened as a result. As India really has become a first world country. And a lot of it has to do with the ideology that Dr. Swami has put forward. So it's amazing when we have examples like this in the world of individuals who persevere, who stick to their guns, and even when other people say, we don't like you, and why don't you just go away? And it is as awesome that people say, I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying right here, going to get the job done, and we're going to help the people of this region. That's what he did for his region. Dr. Swami, thank you so much for not only what you've done for India, but the inspiration you've given to the entire world. And upon that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Swami.
So thank you, Mayor. And I also want to thank PGurus. They are the major inspiration behind many of the international events. And some of you may have known them, but I'll give them around 30 seconds to do what they do. Thank you. He's Sri Iyer, owner of 39 patents.
Thank you, Aditya. Hello, everyone. My name is Sri Iyer, S-R-E-E-I-Y-E-R, and I'm the editor of PGurus.com. Almost the first thing people ask is, what does the P in the PGurus stand for? Well, the website name that I got originally was performancegurus.net. Well, there were two things wrong with it. One was that it had .net as the extension, not .com. And the other one was it was too long to type, Performance Gurus, right? Plus, as I was trying to get myself noticed, people said, performance. And then they started assuming that I was going to talk about Viagra, Levitra, and what else. So I had to make a course correction really, really quickly. And then I went back to searching for names, and pgurus.com was available. So I jumped on it, and now pgurus.com has made a name for itself. What does pgurus.com do? Pgurus.com gives you a window into India for every one of us globally. We only do like 2 or 3 posts a day, and each post is about a minute long. So within 2 or 3 minutes, you've got everything that you need to know about India that happened in the last 24 hours. In addition to that, we also do a lot of in-depth articles, and I would really, really, really appreciate it if all of you start browsing pgurus.com, and if you like some of our articles, please spread the word, and I'm very, very appreciative of Aditya for giving me this chance to share my thoughts on pgurus.com. Thank you.
So I'm waiting for my cell phone browser to load. Oh, finally it is. Okay. So we'd like to introduce you our chief host of the evening, Dr. Pradeep Khosla. He became UC San Diego's 8th Chancellor on August 1, 2012. He leads a campus with more than 35,000 students and 6 undergraduate colleges, 5 academic divisions, and 5 graduate and professional schools. So UC San Diego is also home to the prestigious Scripps Institution of Oceanography and the UC San Diego Health System. With annual revenues of $4.3 billion in fiscal year 2015, UC San Diego is an academic and research powerhouse with faculty, researchers, and staff attracting more than $1 billion in research funding a year, because we also have Mexico dollars too. So this campus is the 3rd largest employer in San Diego County and one of the 10 campuses in the world-renowned University of California system. At UC San Diego, Dr. Khosla initiated and led a comprehensive, all-inclusive strategic planning process to unify the campus and define UC San Diego's future. So the initiative resulted in a strategic plan that outlines 5 overarching goals, 4 grand research themes, and 13 strategies to fulfill our sharpened mission and vision as a student-centered, research-focused, service-oriented public university. An internationally renowned electrical and computer engineer, Dr. Khosla previously served as Dean of the College of Engineering and Philip and Marsha Dowd University Professor at Carnegie Mellon University. He spent the majority of his career at Carnegie Mellon, rising through the ranks from his first position as assistant professor in 1986 to his appointment as dean in 2004. From 94 to 96, he also served as a Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, program manager in Software and Intelligent Systems Technology Office, Defense Sciences Office, and Tactical Technology Office, where he managed advanced research and development programs. So it is a lot achieved, but I'll tell you one more thing. Dr. Khosla is an honorary fellow of the Indian Academy of Science. He is also a recipient of numerous awards for his leadership, teaching, and research, including the 2012 Light of India Award, a Lifetime Achievement Award from the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, and the George Washington Westinghouse Award for contributions to improve engineering teaching. In 2012, this is the last one I'll tell you. There's a lot I skipped, and a lot is beyond this as well. Okay? Because I don't want to take too much time. The last one is, in 2012, he was named as one of the 50 most influential Indian Americans by Silicon India.
Wow.
So with that, I welcome Dr. Khosla to introduce Dr. Swami. Thank you.
Thank you, Aditya. It's actually embarrassing to sit there and listen to 3 pages of your biography. So when I got here, I said, what do you want me to do? He says, you have to introduce Dr. Swami. And it's indeed a great honor for me to introduce Dr. Swami. And then I said, how would I do that? He says, here's 3 pages. Why don't you read that? And he says, that's what Dr. Swami wants. And I know Dr. Swami doesn't want that. So I asked Dr. Swami, I said, how do you want me to introduce you? And I must tell you that it's actually very simple. If you think about UC San Diego as a powerhouse, I think you should think of Dr. Swami also as an intellectual and political powerhouse in India. I think this young man, as his bio says, single-handedly changed the economy of India. If in 1980, when I came to this country, I knew that what he was going to do in 1991, I would not be in this country. Because the changes have been so significant in India. So in 1991, Dr. Swami laid out a master plan to open up the economy. A very progressive thinker, a thinker of the capital markets, a deep understanding of where the capital markets are, how they work, and where they're going. And this understanding came from his basic studies from Harvard. So he got his PhD in economics at Harvard at the tender age of 24. People barely get an undergrad degree nowadays at the tender age of 24. And he was not only a PhD by that time, he went to the Delhi School of Economics to be a faculty member, and of course, it didn't quite go as well as he had anticipated. Went to IIT Delhi. He taught at Harvard as an assistant associate professor. I cannot tell you, he's had an amazing impact He's a member of the Rajya Sabha, and he's been elected 6 times. And back to where I started. If there's one person who's made a tremendous impact on the Indian economy and the country, and Mr. Mayor, you called it a first world country, it would be this young man, Dr. Swami, sir. It's a great honor to welcome you.
Thank you.
I would like to invite Mayor of National City, a small presentation for Dr. Swami.
Okay.
And then after that, Dr. Swami can take over.
Well, two things. I know this is not much, but I know also when you travel, you can only take so much with you. That's one thing. Yeah, people always want to give you these great big things, think somehow you can get that on the plane. It doesn't work that way. But I do want to present you with this plaque presented to Dr. Swami and a member of India's Rajya Sabha. Is that how you pronounce it? Okay, I'll make sure I pronounce that right. Celebrating your visit to National City, California on January the 19th of 2017. One more thing, yeah. One more thing, and that is, and to be honest with you, I've only presented just in my, thank you, in my years as mayor, I've only presented a few of these, and some of them have been to, matter of fact, the president of the Philippines and a few other places along that line, and some guy named something like Pac-Man, I forget now what that was about, but anyway, I would like to present you with the key to our city.
Wow.
Thank you so very much for gracing us with this. Thank you. Thank you so very, very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, National City, for honoring Dr. Swami. And now I'll request Dr. Swami to come on the stage and speak on this topic. Thank you.
Aditya Satsangi, distinguished academicians on the stage with me, and the first citizen of the city of San Diego, the mayor. Thank you for giving me the key. And distinguished members of this audience. We are at a very crucial stage in world affairs. The world is facing very serious challenges, not only economic challenges, but it's also facing existential challenges arising from the menace of terrorism, or religion-based terrorism. India and the United States share these concerns, and therefore it would be obvious that what we want to preserve, both of these countries, we want to preserve being common. We want to preserve democracy. We want to preserve equality of men and women. And we would like the freedom to pursue our interests, fundamental rights to speak and propagate. So these are common things we are committed to with the Constitution. People say that we learned democracy from Britain. I beg to disagree. A very long tradition of grassroots democracy in our country. And whatever we learned as soon as we were able to ask the British successfully to leave was that the country needed a constitution. And the United States was the inspiration for that. Britain has no constitution. So we would have learned about constitution from Britain. And we also were grateful that during the entire World War II, the United States used its influence on Britain to give India freedom. And indeed, if Britain had listened to the United States earlier, then we would have been the Big Five, or the Big Six at that time. The only reason why we could not be in the United Nations Security Council as permanent members was at that time we were a colony of the British. And when the chance came and the United States expelled China because it became communist and the seat in the Security Council became vacant, the United States offered that seat to India. But at that time, Jawaharlal Nehru was so generous, he said, no, the seat belongs to China, and I shall campaign for that. We learned the hard way that there's no such thing as a free lunch, you get it, you take it. But although for a period of 40 years, we were aligned to the Soviet Union, not in so much in terms where Poland and the USSR was aligned. We were an independent country, but our leanings were towards the Soviet Union. And the Soviet Union had, by the middle of the 1950s, begun the process of penetration of our academia, our media, bureaucracy, and exercised a tremendous influence. And the country also believed the propaganda that the Soviets imposed on us, that free market doesn't work anywhere, leads to exploitation, and that in Soviet Union there's no unemployment, there's no poverty, there's no inflation. It's heaven on earth. Well, we learned the hard way that was not true when we found out there was no more any Soviet Union also. 1990 it disappeared into 16 countries. And the country, India, suffered because of that. We suffered during the Islamic invasions. We suffered even more during British occupation and imperialism. And by 1947 we became free. Our agriculture was bone dry. The country which produced so much granary, such a variety of agricultural products, by 1947 was in utter poverty. And it is at that time we should have had a orientation to lift the agriculture first of all. But we adopted the Soviet model, and that Soviet model meant extracting resources from agriculture and financing industrialization, and doing only minimal exports in order to buy some imports. And that was okay for the Soviet Union up to a point, because the czars in Soviet Union had developed agriculture. And when Lenin and thereafter Stalin took over, it was possible to extract resources from agriculture. But the British, because the peasantry supported the rebellion, which we call as the First War of Independence of 1857, had targeted the agriculturists to break their back by extraction of resources. And therefore, there were no resources to give to our industrialization. And the model ultimately collapsed. But the influence of the Soviet Union was so strong that you could overthrow it. just coincidentally, just as the Soviet Union was unraveling, I became the minister. I became the senior most minister. And the good thing was that the prime minister became prime minister because of my agreeing to become his becoming prime minister. So therefore, this enormous influence I had, I was able to bring about a change by presenting an alternative model, and that model was slowly accepted. It was accepted by the successor government, Professor P.V. Narasimha Rao, who had the courage to implement it. His finance minister was actually my economic advisor when I was a minister, and Dr. Manmohan Singh, who subsequently became a prime minister himself. So the change from controlled economy to a market economy in India the process is not completed yet. There are many more things to do. But that transformation made our growth rate, average growth rate, rise from 3.5% per year to 9% per year, with the potential for it to even grow at 12% per year if we learn to use our resources efficiently. It is at this stage, now that we have thrown off the hangovers of the past, that the United States becomes a crucial country for us economically. We don't want the United States to give us money. This concept of foreign aid and so on, I mean, we don't take any foreign aid from the United States. We did at one stage, but very quickly we got out of it. Other countries need lots of money for sustainability. They are dependent on you. But we are an independent country, stand on our own feet. And wherever we got a chance, we have performed for the entire world. During the late 1990s, there was a scare in the world, and that was called the Y2K scare. The fear was that when the year 2000 comes, since all the computers were running on the basis of the last 2 years of the century, so 1996, the computer only recognized 96, or 97, 98. So the question was, when it goes to 2000, this 00 will take you back to 1900. And then the whole computer system would collapse. That was called the Y2K problem. And Americans went in search of software which would ensure that the computer went from 1999 to 2000. And they spent a lot of money. And that's how the boom of software took place in India. All you needed was a computer, or several computers, and a couple of rooms, and you could work the software. And the Indian software revolution started with the American search for the solution to the Y2K problem. Y2K means the year 2000 problem. And we solved it. And that's how today in the Silicon Valley you see more Indian faces than American faces. Of course, there's no such thing as an American face because you have all kinds of faces in America. But the growth, and it led to a transformation of India's image, which earlier on, when I was a student at Harvard, even when I was a professor in the late 60s, at that time the image of India was the land of snake charmers and elephants. And this transformation took place with the help of the Americans, which provided us with the opportunities. Today we are looking to the Americans not for aid, we are not looking for help. We are looking for learning from your innate spirit for innovation. India needs innovations. Economic theory of growth has established clearly that when economic growth takes place and it has to accelerate, then it's the innovation, not more capital, more labor. When you When you use more capital and more labor, you go along a curve. And that curve slowly starts bending because of the law of diminishing returns. But when you want to move from one curve to another curve, you need an innovation. And if you see the last century, how many innovations have come out of the United States? The jet engine, the fax machines, the internet, the calculator. All these innovations have come out of the United States. Of course, earlier on, the telephone, and now the cell phone. All these have essentially come out of the American mindset to think of new ways of doing things. I have found over the years, and my association now is more than 55 years with the United States. I've been coming and going. I spent the first 10 years of my student period and later on teaching period at Harvard from the 60s, early 60s to the end of the 60s, about 8.5 years. And I came practically every year to teach at Harvard for one semester, more often at the summer, which was most convenient for me. And I found that everything I had seen was then later on amended. Even safety pins, they look very different in 1962. If you see the safety pins today, they've got plastic covers so that your hand doesn't get cut by it. So every little detail, Americans are constantly updating their technology. And that's what we want to capture. So today I would say, what we are looking for is how to cooperate and participate with the American economy in such a way that we benefit and you benefit too. There are complementarities. You are a capital surplus economy, I would say, relative to labor. We are just the opposite. We have a shortage of capital. Our capital is extremely expensive. You can't get a loan normally below 12% per year. You can get a loan in the United States at 2% per year. Our wage rates are low. And some of the difficulties we have in accommodating the Americans or the American enterprise is because of these mismatches, which can be converted into advantageous complementarities. I remember when I was a minister, the Walmart delegation met me, and they wanted to bring Walmart to India. So I told them, we have a problem. They said, why you should have a problem? China has allowed us to come. I said, for China it made sense, because the communist rule had wiped out the service sector. And this is the kind of service you provide, they are not able to. And that's why they heartily welcomed you. And you filled the gap. But for us, the products and the way, particularly the agricultural commodities, these, whatever Walmart does, it looks very nice. But at the same time, India has a vast army of traders who work on a very thin margin. And they employ labor at very low wage rates. When you allow a corporation like Walmart to come and then start opening these gala stores, fancy looking stores, the traditional trader faces a two-way crunch. One is that Walmart capital comes to them at 2%. And for the trader, it comes at not less than 12%. And both of them are taking benefit of the same pool, and that is the cheap labor pool of India. And as a consequence, labor wage rates also rise. And therefore, this vast army of millions of traders will become unemployed, and in fact unemployable. And that is why we have to make some adjustments. They asked me what adjustments. I said the adjustment would be that A, you also allow Indian traders to borrow from American banks at 2%. then we are ready to face competition. Or you allow Indian companies to go to the United States, build roads by tender, or houses. And I can tell you that if you allow Indian construction companies and you allow Indian road builders to come here, we'll outbid any American company in a tender. So, well, the American ambassador who was accompanying them said, that will create an immigration problem for us. I said, I know you have a problem, but so do we have problems. So these are some of the areas where we find it difficult to cooperate. And we have, of course, other areas. There are areas where we want the Americans' cooperation, but the Americans look upon the security angle, the secrecy angle. Some of their technologies are such cutting-edge technologies that the Americans are reluctant to give unless they're sure we don't go to the third country. We can't be sure that we get some technology. And the Chinese, who are also a great presence in India, in the trade area, take advantage of that. And what is not to them directly accessible becomes indirectly accessible. But keeping all that in mind, India needs certain urgent innovations, which the Americans can easily provide to us. One is that for energy, we know that we can't go on importing crude oil from Arab countries. 86% of our crude oil comes from Arab countries. We need to generate power not by coal, not by oil, but by some kind of environmentally clean fuel. And nuclear reactors is one of them. We have now a deal with the Americans on nuclear reactors, but they are based on uranium. I don't think uranium will last more than another 30 years. The supply will get exhausted. And we need a new nuclear fuel, and that most scientists believe would be thorium. And 60% of the thorium is available in India. You can find it in the sands of South India, Kerala and Tamil Nadu. One day I saw in the newspaper that one trader had been convicted for smuggling sand out of India. And I said, which crazy guy would smuggle sand? It turns out that the sand has the thorium monazite. And so some foreign company was obviously knowing that and therefore decided to take that sand, and that export of that sand is banned. If we are able to convert thorium into U-233 and use it as a nuclear fuel for our reactors, then we will generate so much power that not only for ourselves but the whole of South Asia and Southeast Asia we can provide power by a grid process. So that technology United States has, but is not ready to part with it, naturally. But the United States doesn't even want to develop it very much because the United States doesn't foresee a serious energy problem because over the years you have brought in shale oil and that has made you almost self-sufficient in oil. You are not dependent on any other country for energy purposes. But there are other areas also where the United States can play a major role. We are quarreling forever for lack of river water. And the two southern states of Karnataka and Tamil Nadu are perpetually in quarrel. But the long coastline both states have, one on the western side, the Karnataka state, and the other on the eastern side, the Tamil Nadu state. The United States can assist us to develop solar-based desalination plants. There's plenty of ocean. The Indian Ocean is a very large ocean. The Chinese don't like the name. They often said, how can we call this Indian Ocean? We use it more than you do, which is a fact. But this amount of water, desalination is now being used because it really essentially invented by or rather the research and development was done by the Israelis. But at the same time, the Arab countries, even though they don't like Israel, they use it very extensively. Because they don't have rivers. And you will go to Dubai or you go to Abu Dhabi, you'll see green parks. I always wonder how it despises desalination. 100% of the water supply in Saudi Arabia and in many Arab countries is from desalination of seawater. And we can become self-sufficient for every town, city, village if we can have solar energy based desalination plants. This is something again you have. So I am very saying that it's necessary for India to develop close relations with the United States. The United States can also give us technology in areas where we can supplement you in your areas of what I would call as shortage. You produce defense technology. I see it San Diego. I've never seen such fancy ships which you are designing. I see them standing there in the state-of-art destroyers. We have a vast ocean. We need to defend it. And we need destroyers in large numbers. And United States is a country which is producing the most efficient destroyers, not to mention aircraft carriers and submarines. But San Diego is a place where I think we should have a business delegation come and later on interact with our Ministry of Defense to see that we can get from the Americans this technology. In return for what? In return, not for money, but to address one of your chief concerns today. The Americans are concerned about the problem of Islamic terror. And that's our problem too. And we have a dangerous organization called the ISIS, which was fortunate enough to have a disbanded army converted to their army. The Iraqi army, which was disbanded, became almost totally the army of the ISIS. And they also have areas that captured which has oil wells, and they are selling it in the black market and making a lot of money. And therefore they have become, unlike other terrorist organizations, they have now got a land piece, they've got a professional army, and they have to combat them. It's very urgent. And you have to combat them where they are presently. Not that if they come to our borders. They can easily come to our borders. For us, it looks almost imminent because the state in which Pakistan today is. And this, therefore, must be fought. And if India and the United States, and perhaps also Israel, combine, we are the three natural partners, all three democracies, all three defending their democracies, their secular politics. And we have a large army, and we are not so sensitive as the Americans. I found ever since 1962, the turning point in American thinking of whether to fight a war or not is when the casualties per week exceeds 10 soldiers. It happened in Vietnam, it's happened in Afghanistan, it's happened in Iraq. And therefore, Indian troops, if we persuade our people, I think we can, especially in collaboration with the United States, decide to confront this menace called the ISIS, a threat to the civilization of the whole world, by a joint operation where we exchange our complementarities in such a way that we can help Indian army confronting the ISIS on the borders of Syria, but with equipment which the Americans have developed. If I put it in Trump's language, the new president from tomorrow, I'll say, I'm ready to send our guys, you open your warehouse and let me pick what I want. So that And of course, the Israelis have this vast intelligence on Arab terror or Islamic terror. So the three of us are actually natural partners in fighting terror. And it is necessary to fight it if you are going to have an economic stability in your countries. War is an unsettling factor. And therefore, there is a whole lot of new vistas, not the traditional ones of bringing machines from America or getting American experts to come and advise us how to set up a steel plant. We are now matured enough. India is today the third largest economy in the world, measured by the GDP measured by purchasing power parity. That is a common currency so that it's not subject to the vagaries of exchange rates. And on PPP, as it's called, purchasing power parity rates, United States is number 1, China is number 2, and India is number 3. And my own experience and knowledge of China, I would say that we would be able to overtake China by 2025 and become number 2. About 5 years ago, we were behind Japan. Today, we are ahead of Japan in aggregate terms. Of course, in per capita, still way behind. But in terms of deployment of resources, what matters is the aggregate GDP, not the per capita GDP. And so, India is in a position to pay for what it wants. At the same time, what it needs, the United States has. And we are natural partners in the economic field, and that is the focus I'd like to give today. If there are questions, I'd be happy to handle it, subject, of course, the moderators or our distinguished professor here, and subject to that, I'm ready to answer any questions on this and related issues. Thank you.
Mike?
Yeah.
Okay. So first of all, thank you very much for an amazingly informational talk, and such a wide-ranging talk at that. So here's what we're going to do. I know everyone will have questions, but I want to start with a couple of questions, and then I'm going to hand it over to. So there's 3 topics I want to ask you about. One is about innovation. The second is about the economy of India, and especially demonetization. I was just there, so I was a victim of. And thirdly, I want to ask about China. So let's just start with innovation. I think you make a really good point that India needs the American innovation. So help me understand, what does India need? Should it not change its culture? Should it not have the right high-powered universities, which America does, which drive all this economy? And you being at Harvard, me, Carnegie Mellon, these are the drivers of innovation. So help me understand, how is India trying to pick up its university system and take it to the next level?
Well, one of the mistakes we made in the last 70 years since independence is the poor allocation for the educational sector. American universities are private, but the United States government, like the National Science Foundation, etc., gives extensive grants to scholars so that they don't have to depend on the university for it. And that model is something that we need to adopt. Second thing I find is that United States top universities are really founded by the alumni. And Harvard is alumni run, Yale is alumni run. Whereas in India the state has been involved. And the state means, of course, then restriction on the marketplace of ideas. And we need to, now that we have got a tremendous alumni, and we need to draw on that and start universities on a priority basis which focus on original research. Today you can become a professor in India on the bureaucratic principle, which is called department promotion rules. You don't have to do research to, and you've done a number of years, you get automatically promoted. And most important innovation that you have come up with, and which my son-in-law, who was a professor at MIT, contributed, was called the EDX system for education, where it's possible now to actually sit in the classroom of Harvard and MIT and take a course, take the exams, get graded through the internet.
Right.
So these are the areas which I think we should do. I don't think India would ever allow, nor I think they should allow, campuses like the Americans, like the Chinese allowed for Americans. That is, foreign universities come and open a campus, and then they run the universities like Harvard does in Switzerland and some other countries, and also in China. That model will not work for India. What we need is this kind of technological ways by which we can learn from American classes, or we have the facility which we have had for the last 80 years of Indian students going and studying and becoming part of the American academia. And now there's an increasing number of people who have started to return. So that kind of exchange is another way of doing it.
So this is great. So let me then change the topic completely. So let's go to China. Let's talk about the Chinese. I know. So if you didn't know, he's the leading Chinese expert who speaks fluent Chinese in India. It's amazing. So they're talking about building this roadway which goes through Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, which was originally part of India. And
It's still a part of India.
right. Yeah, that's true. And this could be the source of great instability in the region.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to understand, what's your view on the government policies on this and the role of the U.S., Russia, and the role of U.S. in this?
Well, we have very strong reservations about Russia, and that's not rational. It's basically our experience with them. Although this is not Soviet Union, but all said and done, Putin is KGB. You can't forget that. So, I mean, we'll have good relations with the Russians, but there'll always be, always looking back to see when, if anybody's looking, that sort of thing. It's just kind of a restricted way. We have not made much progress in our relations with Putin since our party came to power, and our party was always the target of the disinformation of the Soviet propaganda system. And I've suffered the most on that. So we have, and Russia, what is it that it can offer us? I mean, it's basically, it's not an economy which is, in my opinion, it's seriously eternally bleeding. I see China as an important question for us because it's our neighbor. And in the early years, we made foolish mistakes like signing off Tibet as a part of China. And not only we signed it off in the 1950s, but even the BJP government under Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee re-signed that agreement to convince the Chinese that, we don't mean we have no intention on Tibet. So therefore they are now our neighbors. And we also have a lot of cultural history with them. So I mean, it's easy to move with the Chinese. We have no cultural problems. But they are our neighbors. If you are going to have problems with them, we have to deal with it. We can't expect the United States to come all the way to help us out. So many of our problems are because we don't have good relations with China. And therefore, if we have good relations with China, I can tackle Pakistan in 1 week.
So you don't see a problem you don't see China being a cause of instability in South China Sea, in the Indian Ocean, in that whole region?
Well, as far as South China Sea is concerned, that's a US problem, not ours. See, we know that there is a dispute. After World War II, the Americans handed over South China Sea to Chiang Kai-shek's China. These are those islands. And after the Korean War, they grabbed it back. So it's a complicated problem. And for us to take a stand, we learned the ire of China, and the goodwill of Japan is dependent on the goodwill of America. If the Americans are nice with us, the Japanese will be nice with us. The Americans don't like us, the Japanese will also keep their distance with us. I mean, that's the bondage between America and Japan. So I won't get into that. My view is that if you are very cautious with China, and they know that you can harm them, they are very rational people. When I first went to China on behalf of the Prime Minister, Mr. Desai, when I was the first time after 1962, the thaw began. It began with my visit. The first thing the Chinese told me in Chinese is "Tian pu pa, ti pu pa, jo pa yang gui zi, hui shou zhong ge hua." So the meaning is, don't fear the gods, don't fear the devil, but do fear the foreigner who can speak Chinese. They can't understand why anybody would want to learn Chinese.
Right.
It's such a difficult language.
Especially in 62.
Yes, I mean, it's a proverb which goes on. The Chinese have an assessment that they are vulnerable because they have a long supply line to our border, which goes through hostile territory of Tibet. Tibet is not, still the Tibetan people have still not assimilated themselves. So that's not a very strong area. And in fact, the way we opened the doors with the Chinese, when the Prime Minister, Mr. Desai, a very strong anti-communist, he asked me to see whether the Chinese who don't talk to us, who say that all this territory belongs to them, can at least say it's disputed and we are ready to talk. I told him that they're having a problem with the Soviets, and on an island in a river called Ussuri River. And if we can tell the Chinese that if you have a fight, or the Russians pick a fight with you, we'll be neutral. Mr. Desai, of course, said to me, but we are neutral, we are non-aligned. We are the part of the non-aligned movement. I said, no, you have, during Mrs. Gandhi's time, we signed a treaty with the Russians, the Soviets. It's called the Indo-Soviet Peace Treaty, which enabled the Soviets to send troops via India to Tibet in case Soviets are attacked. Now, attack is a subjective word. You can attack and still be said that you are attacked. Now, because I gave an assurance that India would be neutral and will not allow the Soviet troops to come back, on behalf of the Prime Minister, the whole Chinese attitude changed. Today, the Chinese are asking, I'll be very frank, that you assure us that you will be independent of the United States. Now, we can play on words like the Americans play on words saying that we believe in one China policy, which means nothing, you see. It's another way of not abandoning Taiwan. So this is the way, I think, what I'm thinking of a triangular relationship. But when the chips are down with the Americans,
So let's change to the economy. Just help us understand the role of black money in India and its negative impact on the economy.
Well,
This is an important question.
yeah, sure. So, the amount of what black money means, that money which was not disclosed to the income tax authorities and works on cash basis. I would say about 60% of it is abroad, which is about $1 trillion. That big. It's growing. The remaining is within the country. Within the country, it's sometimes a flow, sometimes a stock. Whereas abroad, what is there is a stock. It's in the bank. In these numbered accounts, banking systems of about 70 countries of the world. Now, what happened is that the Prime Minister decided, I'm talking about your problem you had when you went to the airport and you couldn't get change, I
It
think.
was minor, but
Yeah.
but they take credit cards now, so that's
Yeah,
good.
that's right. So, so what happens is that, that this money, supposing I have undisclosed, I didn't tell the income tax authorities I have some money in cash, or I faked my export bills and my import bills and collected the difference in cash. This money, if tomorrow I travel by taxi and give him in cash, it becomes white in the sense that he has legitimately earned it. And so this inside the economy, it sometimes becomes a flow, sometimes it becomes a stock. Now, how to deal with it? And you have to deal with it. You see, what happens with black money, it is used essentially for non-essential production or consumption. People build huge mansions in India. It's vulgar to see that, some of them, because they have money to throw around. They celebrate marriages as nobody ought to celebrate. It's an enormous waste of money because they have got this cash. So what it does is it distorts the investment priorities. The second thing is that that black money is converted into foreign currency and put in foreign bank accounts through the Hawala route. So how to tackle it? Well, demonetization was a way, but in fact I recommended it because in the early months of, just before the election, the now Prime Minister, at that time Prime Minister candidate of our party, he asked me to head a committee called the Strategic Action Committee. And we produced a blueprint and said that demonetization must be done, but it should be done after you have printed 6 times the low denomination currencies and you're ready for it. 2, I said you have to give the people something for all the hardships they'll go through. So the middle class particularly, you should abolish income tax completely. Those are some of the things we said, but none of it was done. And principally the responsibility was of the finance ministry. And they didn't do it. We didn't have currency. We had a new 2,000 rupee currency, a note printed, and that was a smaller size, and it wouldn't fit into the ATMs. So we couldn't put the replacement of the demonetized money, the replacement for that, because it wouldn't fit in there. So a lot of mismanagement in terms of implementation. But we have one small gain which we are claiming, and that is that the terrorists from Pakistan used to give our youngsters in Kashmir 500 rupees if you throw a stone on the police, and 1,000 rupees if you throw a stone on the Indian Army. That counterfeit money, now because of the demonetization, is gone. So now Kashmir is in peace. If you want to visit it, it's the right time.
That's good. But what do you think? Will the country come back to like 7, 8, 9, 10% growth
Yes,
rate?
it'll take a year.
It will take a year, but you're confident it'll come back.
Oh yeah.
Right, okay.
India has always benefited by a crisis.
So let's see, let's open it up to the audience. Let's go with, right there. Okay, 1 and then 2. Okay, I'll go 2 at a time. Go ahead.
I wanted to switch from the political and economic area to an underlying ailment as we see from abroad in India, and that's the security problem. You had indicated earlier that in India we want to be able to give equal recognition and rights to women.
Yeah.
And yet women in India by far are the ones who suffer the most. So what is the present government doing to be able to allay the fears of even people like us who go abroad? When we are with our wives or our daughters and all that, there are some concerns. So how are you addressing that?
Well, I'd have to make 2-3 preliminary comments. First of all, fear is not rational. So if you think that the moment you land there, somebody will grab your daughter and run away, that's not the kind of situation we have. And while statistics are no arguments, but still, for perspective, I'll say that there is a ratio of population, the molestation of women, including rape, is much lower than any other developed country of the West. You can see the statistics from the United Nations. But that's no satisfaction. There is a rising curve of attacks on women, and there has to be met. It's got nothing to do with our cultural system, because in our cultural system, women have had not only equal rights, but they have actually dominated in many areas. For instance, if we see our heavenly cabinet, the main portfolios are held by women. Education is presided over by Saraswati. Defense is presided over by Durga. And finance is presided over by Lakshmi. And men gods have nothing except information and broadcasting with Narad Muni.
Destruction.
Huh?
And destruction with Shiva.
Yeah. No, Shiva also in the end had to go and fall at his wife's feet.
Right.
And she then converted herself to Kali and butchered everybody who Shiva wanted butchered, those devils who had to be butchered. Men failed, gods failed. Our Ramayana and Mahabharata is what we call the obstinacy of women, which is why it took place. For example, Mahabharata took place because Draupadi, who was stripped in the open court, she said, unless she told her husbands, I think, and said to Lord Krishna that I will not rest till I get the blood of my tormentor and I wash my hair with it. And the war took place because of that obstinacy. Sita was kidnapped by Ravan, taken to Sri Lanka, and the monkey king, as the world knows, Hanuman, located her and told her, sit on my back and I'll take you back to your husband. She said, no, so many women have been kidnapped, I'm not going to go. Let my husband come and kill the king of Sri Lanka. And that's why the Ramayana took place. So I think you see scholars, the greatest debate that ever took place in our theology was the debate between Adi Shankara and Mandana Mishra, the Buddhist scholar. The debate terms was that if Shankara loses, he will convert to Buddhism, and if Mandana Mishra loses, he will convert to Hinduism. The question was, these two scholars debate, who's going to be the judge? So they chose the wife of Mandana Mishra. It was a big error, because wives know their husbands better than anybody else. And she adjudged him a loser. And he converted to Hindu. That's how Hinduism returned, overthrowing Buddhism. So women across the board. Now, where the change took place was this, first of all, 800 years of Islamic rule. And you know from whatever you're seeing, there is no equality for women in Islam. That is their system. I'm not critical of it, but I'm saying that's their system. And then 200 years of British rule, where we had all these Tommies come from Britain. Now we have not made the necessary cultural renaissance that was necessary. And there is nothing in our scriptures, law, which requires women to be subjugated by men or have less rights. The most quoted source is Manu's, but Manu is what we call as a Shastra, which can be amended. In fact, Manu was it was superseded by Yajnavalkya's code of ethics. And so women, there's no basis for it. I have to say this because somehow an impression is in the West is that women are, traditionally treated as property. Not in our religion, not at all. And we are 80% Hindu, and I can speak for the whole of India. That is so. But we do need some deterrent punishment for some of these outstanding cases of utter cruelty that accompanied the molestation and rape. The Nirbhaya case, which I fought in the Supreme Court, I was surprised to find lady NGOs opposing my asking for a stricter sentence. Well, you know, obviously they were all left-wing, so you can't expect rationality from them. The Supreme Court ultimately agreed with me, but they said it's Parliament that has to legislate. My view is that the punishment should be such that the whole society must know this is the rapist. He doesn't have anonymity anymore, and he is surgically so treated that he can never rape again. That is, I think, in this country known as the vomit cut or something like that. So that is coming, and I'm sure that the state of affairs you have, you are fearful of, it will disappear. There are incidents which we have brought to light where these dramas have been enacted. For example, recent one of a girl walking on the street and somebody suddenly coming out and grabbing her and kissing her and groping her. Turned out that it was a drama. It was both were about to get married, and so they decided to, do this drama for the media. And the media also does it out of proportion. And they're bound to, they do it in every country. But I don't think that things are so bad that you need to be apprehensive.
Aditya, you wanted to?
Just want to, like some more guests have come, and just want to say the president of TIE, Mr. Prabal Gupta, and want to honor him here. Dr. Stephen Kalalui from Stephen K Leadership is here, and Mr. Greg Jamieson from the Elite Athlete Services. Thank you.
This is great. So we had another question back there, number 2. No, there was, okay, go ahead, number 2. No. Yeah, you were number 2, and okay, I'm gonna come there at number 4. So the lady back there is number 3, and then I'll come there. You'll be number 4. Okay, go ahead.
It's a great honor to meet you, Dr. Swami. One of my main questions was, from tomorrow, Donald Trump is going to be the President of the United States, and his main campaign promise was to bring back jobs to the United States. And one of the biggest hit would be Indian companies would be taking because of changes in laws in immigration, in especially H-1B. So what do you think should Indian companies think is a workaround for this situation, and especially Indian employees who come from India? They're stuck in a very limbo kind of situation here because there might be,
I think the question is clear, so let's just keep the question short.
Okay.
So.
Okay, thanks. Well, I think, first of all, let me say that whoever is the President of the United States, we accept him and give him the same respect as any other person. You have to say internal choice, and we have nothing to comment on about Donald Trump. But I would say that one outstanding quality of him is that he's open to negotiations. He's a businessman in that sense. And we should give him statistics to show that every software company in India, from India, in the United States, or a software engineer coming here, he indirectly generates more jobs than he takes away from the American people. And therefore, he should welcome Indian companies to set up software units here. This question of the superficial aspect of looking at the direct effect of people from abroad coming and taking jobs has to be now moderated by a calculation of what are the indirect effects and how many jobs are in fact created because of the work done by these people who come from abroad. And I'm sure that as a practical businessman who believes in cost-benefit analysis, he can be brought around.
Let's go with, yeah, please.
Yeah, Yes, I wanted to ask you about your thoughts on healthcare. In your country and here in the U.S., you know that our Affordable Care Act is about to be supposedly dismantled, and I'd like to know, how you would compare and contrast, and also, more importantly, where you see the synergies between our countries in terms of healthcare.
I'm glad you asked me because we've been doing some recent thinking on this. We find our modern hospitals, which we call as corporate hospitals because they are run as like a company, are flooded by Asians and Africans coming for treatment because you can get a world-class stent put in your artery for 1/10 the cost you pay here, and with the same success rate. And almost everything, I find, go to any hospital. So we are in a position to be a hub for, as an international, provide an international health system for people from all over the world to come. And with this possibility of communicating through the internet, I think the United States and India should work out a system where many of the things that you do here, which because of your high cost of labor is expensive, we can do it in India. And we have to have an understanding on it, we have to work out the logistics of it. But India is poised to become a health center of the world because of its ability to produce top-class doctors and the cost being so low. In fact, some of the things which have become absurd is a lot of American couples who don't have children, they come and rent wombs, as they say in India. It's illegal, but it's done because, in terms of physical characteristics, there's not that much difference between the Indians and the Caucasians. So therefore, while we don't support this, but I'm saying it shows the market forces are pulling a lot of clientele towards India, and India needs a great deal of more investment in health so that we are able to provide cheap and high-class medical attention to as many parts of the people of the world as desire to come.
So would you say the regulation and oversight in India is as stringent and
Yes, it
above
is.
board as the US?
Well, no. US is the great beauty in US is everything has a what is called as a oversight
Right.
thing, and there, people are questioning here. They are much more questioning, and of course, maybe they've carried filing suits to an extreme. But people here do know that they can be challenged in courts. India, the accountability concept is still very weak.
Right. Okay.
So it's an inherited system, but we need to dismantle it.
So let's go with you, sir.
This is a question about natural allies. So I just want to ask you about Israel. You mentioned desalination technology. You mentioned thorium-233. By many accounts, they are probably this third world's largest nuclear arsenal, actually.
Yeah.
And also they have some of the best universities in the world, given the amount of capital, you know. So even collaboration with universities, innovation and all that stuff. So what are we doing with respect to,
Israel.
past governments have always avoided Israel, but now I want to know what's being done now.
With Israel?
Yes.
Well, you ask the Israelis, they've never been as happy as with us in power. We are not flaunting our relations with Israel, but they know very well. First of all, we have a long tradition of playing host to Israelis who suffered persecution, who came and stayed in India. And they've stayed for almost 1,000 years. And the Israeli parliament in 1948, upon its first session was over and the adoption of the constitution was over, passed a resolution to thank India as the only country which didn't persecute Jews. We have synagogues even today. All the Jews of India, large numbers have gone back. And we have Jews in very high places. We have generals in the army. we have doctors, we have people don't even notice that they are Jews. So that has been our relationship with the Jewish community. And as far as Israel is concerned, our party was the first one which said that we must have diplomatic connections, relations with Israel. I myself broke every convention that was being applied on members of parliament, went to Israel in 1982 at the invitation of Prime Minister Begin. Mrs. Gandhi appealed to me in parliament, please don't go, there's a massacre in Shatila massacre in Lebanon, and it will bring out a bad name if you go. I said, tell me which part of the world there is no massacre, and I will not go, I'll go to that part of the world. There is massacre everywhere, even in India there was a massacre at that time in Assam. So that can't be an argument. So that started it, and the first tourist visa issued was at my residence in 1989, when the Israeli consul was a trade consul in Bombay, came to Delhi, and he foisted the Israeli flag on top of my house, which is a government house, which was an illegality I committed, but nobody minded it, and issued journalists, about 6 journalists, to go to Israel. So we in India have, at the mass level, tremendous affection for Israel, admiration for their scientific achievements. And even their cows, we got 150 million cows, they give out 200 liters per year. One Israeli cow gives you 11,000 liters per year on the average. Imagine if our 150 million cows can give 11,000 liters, I would come to San Diego swimming in milk.
In fact, as a matter of trivia, I think the second oldest Jewish temple in the world is in Cochin.
Ah, that's right.
Right. So it's India has a long tradition, including Persians and Iranis.
Yes, the Parsi community.
Exactly, right. Okay, so let's see.
My wife is a Parsi. So
I see.
know
So just want to
Wait. Go ahead.
Just want to recognize Ekal Foundation, Pratibha Goel. This is Pratibha Goel. She's leading that foundation, and also want to recognize.
She's the sister of one of our ministers. She should answer more for the government of India.
and also want to recognize the Mr. Subra from Qualcomm. He's the vice president there. And
Good. All right, let's go to, let's see. Wait. Okay, go ahead. That's the right person. Let me see.
I have a question. What change
I'm going to go to
in
that lady.
relationship do you see between Mr. Modi and Mr. Trump from what it's today?
Well, I think Modi needs intermediaries like me, who knows the American idiom. Well, I think both respect each other's country, so that's a good start. And both are committed to a healthy attitude towards many of the problems like this terrorism problems. But there's a lot of common ground, but the chemistry I can't predict. I think it should be okay because Modi has had many problems with the chemistry of other leaders. But the what we call as the gravity is so strong that irrespective of leaders, the relationship between India and the United States is going to be continue to be strengthened.
Let's go back there. Yeah, please.
Guruji, it's a great honor to ask you this question. So, I'd just like to know, is it wise and or feasible to have legislation to ban foreign-funded NGOs in India from filing public interest litigation? Because I just read your, your written arguments in favor of Jallikattu, and there are so many similar cases. So, would that be wise and or feasible, to nip that sort of thing in the bud?
You mean ban NGOs from
Foreign-funded NGOs from filing public
interest litigations
in Indian courts?
While giving me a new idea, let me react without having thought much about it. We have a problem with our constitution in that respect, in the sense that these NGOs may be foreign funded, but they are manned by Indian citizens. And while our constitutional fundamental rights are subject to what they call as reasonable restrictions, although the American Constitution doesn't explicitly say that fundamental rights are subject to reasonable restrictions, but the Supreme Court judgments of the United States US Supreme Court makes it clear that there is an unwritten but existing reasonable restriction to your fundamental rights. So whether the fundamental rights would include restricting an NGO from receiving funds from abroad as long as it is legal and comes through the due process, and that is something which and whether they should be allowed to approach the Supreme Court. Supreme Court, they approach under Article 32, which is a fundamental right. Whether those fundamental rights would not apply is something that is to be thought of. But there's no doubt that some of the NGOs have in the past received funds from very dubious circumstances, not only from the West, but more so from the Middle East. And we need to have a look at it. Our government has, by the way, weeded out some thousands of NGOs on that, and we have banned some of them. One ban hurt people in America because it was doing missionary activity of converting people, and we believe that you can't convert under the Indian Constitution by inducement. If somebody voluntarily converts, it is fundamental right. But if you induce him that I'll get you a scholarship to America if you convert to Christianity, that we can't accept. So there are problems, but whether we should have a blanket ban or not, I think you'll have to think, and next time I come here, you please ask me this question. I would have thought this.
Okay, let's go there and then we'll come to you after this.
Dr. Swami, big fan of your work, especially the corruption charges that you've been fighting in Supreme Court. Really appreciate your judicial activism on that. I'm hopeful that someday you'll be able to catch hold of Chidambaram, like you have in Sonia.
That's a couple of weeks away.
Fingers crossed on that. My question is regarding GST. In the beginning of your speech, you said you talked about the economical reform that was brought about by the government that you were part of. Today also we are at the same crossroads. We have passed this land bank bill, but you have expressed some principal disagreement with GSTN, not GST per se.
Right.
So what will be your course of action for that? It has already been deferred, so hopefully it's not more deferred.
Yeah, deferred by a few months. Let me explain what he's saying. We thought that there are multiplicity of taxes at the indirect level, mostly excise taxes and sales tax and so on. So it was decided that the indirect tax shall be only one, and it should be applied at the point of sale and not at the point of manufacture. Now that created problems because the manufacturing states would lose revenue, and the people where it is sold, they'll get bonanza. So there had to be a formula by which there will be sharing of that money. Now that is a matter on which there's a lot of dispute, but it was being worked out, and suddenly I threw a spanner, which they have no explanation. And it would mean that if they don't listen to me, I'll go on a PIL to court and get it stopped. I don't want this GST to come as yet. By the way, in the United States, they rejected GST, that is goods and services tax. They rejected it because it interfered with the states' rights. India, we don't have American-style states. We have, the American-style states are federal. We are not a federal country. We are a unitary, our constitution is a unitary constitution with subsidiary federal principles, in the sense the Constitution has delineated some areas which the states have exclusive rights, but that doesn't include most important part of those rights. That is only with the central government. The central government can dismiss, for example, a state government duly elected. So we are in that sense of unity. Now, what the problem is this, that we need a machinery to collect all this vast amount of data which will enable us to find out who produces what and where it is sold, all this data and the quantum, the money, the amount produced and the amount sold and so on. That required a vast computer program. And so the previous government, which started this GST, had quietly set up a private limited company in which the union government and the state government had minority shares. The majority shares was with two private banks and one wholly owned subsidiary of the stock exchange for reasons unknown. And these two private banks were only Indian in name because their head office was in India, but its shares were 80% owned by foreigners. So we felt that these are sensitive data of economics, which company is producing what and where and how does the flow of goods take place, etc., that it should be available to foreigners. So I said, we have got big banks in our country, why do we need foreign controlled banks? So then when I started putting it under lens, many things came out that there was no security clearance. We have to, where foreign banks are or foreign held banks are involved, we have to have security clearance. That was not taken. The previous government had completely put it in, there was a blackout about it. Nobody even knew about it till I brought it out, and finally I told the Prime Minister, this is not a party matter. If you don't remove these private institutions and bring in our public institutions, because tax data is secret, it's private, it's not available for sale, and therefore you don't do it, I will go to court. And I've got a very good record in court cases. And the Prime Minister said, okay, and he has now ordered a security review. But that's going to take time, so I don't see GST coming in this term, and I'm very confident that we'll get the second term too in 2019.
Dr. Swami, you rightly you rightly pointed out that India needs innovation. Absolutely, it does. But as you also know, that most of innovation happens with private capital.
Yes.
And mostly with equity, not so much debt, because a new venture doesn't have the capital to service a debt.
Yeah.
But in the early 2000s, as you would have noted, there was a lot of interest of private equity capital going into India, but there were some horrible cases where equity got stuck, the promoters misappropriated those capital, and the aggregator of that capital sitting in the West lost a lot of face.
Yeah.
Do you see anything changing in India that would prevent these kind of things to be taken care of in the future?
Most people tell me if I manage to send Sonia Gandhi and Chidambaram to jail, confidence will come back. Because honestly, I mean, this is not a political comment. I have objective facts on this. Practically everything which was corrupted in our institutional setups, including the way the stock market is a rigged market. You have this participatory notes, I don't know whether you heard of that. That's a scandalous thing. Yeah, it's black money going out, and some financial banks and all the banks and the institutions have been empowered for India alone. No other country has this. That if you place a bag full of cash, no questions asked by Morgan Stanley or Goldman Sachs or US Fidelity Investments, and they will give you a piece of paper with the amount written on it and nothing else, no date, no serial number, nothing. And that's called a participatory note. And you bring it to India and give a copy to the Reserve Bank, they give you a receipt. And with that receipt you go to the stock market and give it. And it's treated as cash. And you can buy stocks. And the stocks then, because of the demand rises, then you sell it at a high place, you get rupees, you take it back to the Reserve Bank and they are obligated to give you dollars. And so those who have money in Swiss banks, at present they have to pay a service charge to the Swiss banks. Now they can earn money on it. And they've brought in one more rule that if a Mauritius company invests in India or buys shares, then there is no capital gains tax for them. Why? Because Mauritius is a poor country, it's, a lot of overseas Indians there, etc. Yeah. And today, I'm surprised to find that the maximum foreign investment ranked by countries is not the United States, but Mauritius.
Mauritius, right. It's a tax haven.
It's our own money coming back to it. So all these institutions that have been set up for legitimizing corruption.
So let me ask you a question about governance in Indian companies that are publicly traded. So I serve on the board, and it's really interesting to watch where the promoter cannot sell his or her stake, just like the American founder can.
Yeah, well, there are those restrictions, of course. No, the thing is that this kind of lens, if you start putting on corporates, you get, your hair stands on end. Tata is a hallowed name, right? But now, on 3rd of February, I am trying to send him to jail, Mr. Ratan Tata, for a fraud which he should not have committed. He had already a telecom license, and then he created a real estate company. He got a real estate company, made them apply, and he financed their purchase of spectrum, and that was totally illegal. And there are many other things. We had allowed foreign airlines to invest in Indian airlines up to 49%. And he went into a deal with AirAsia with Singapore, and created a joint venture which is illegal, and nobody questioned him. So I think if I start looking at corporates, a lot of cleaning up will have to take place, and so we have to make examples. So this is going to be one.
Yeah, so you go next, and the young lady back there afterwards. Go ahead.
Good evening, Doctor. So I'm a chiropractic physician, and I have a great interest in opening up a chiropractic college and a chiropractic hospital system in India. Now, what's the best way to accomplish this? Because we're talking and speaking of a career which anybody can do who can get the good education to do it, and it requires very little capital to start up. So somebody who doesn't have a lot of money going into school or coming out can actually start a business with they can support themselves and their family. So what is the best way to do something like this?
Well, we got hangover of the past, so I don't want to give you a rosy picture. Maybe 6 months down the line, I might be in a position to do something about it. And if I come back here, you ask me that question again. But at the moment, if you have stamina, India is a great place. If you can stick it out. I mean, I've seen people who have come back from America. They've been through hell, but they stuck it out. And then they won the admiration of peers, and now they're doing very well. So I'm thinking, what you're saying is absolutely very simple, straightforward, but I can't promise that the bureaucracy won't make your life difficult. But the way we are going, I think, and the commitment to the Prime Minister, I'm sure 6 months down the line, particularly if we get an electoral reverse in one of these provinces, that will accelerate that. Just wait 6 months more.
Okay, so I'm having difficulty choosing people who ask questions. So I'll go by gender now. Man, woman. That would be a good algorithm. So go for it.
Hello, Dr. Swami. Thank you so much for your educated words. So you talked about the GDP growth and the PPP. How do we make sure that this growth of GDP and PPP would trickle down to the bottom of the pyramid and kind of reduce the disparity between the rich and the poor?
Well, the way you measure the inequality in the country is by the Lawrence coefficient or the Gini coefficient. And the ratio of urban per capita income as a ratio of rural per capita income, they are indexes. But they don't show that the inequality is increasing. In fact, they show the inequality is decreasing. And inequality today in India is less than in China, because the Chinese problem is the urban areas is shot ahead, left the rural areas behind. Yes, the way to do it ultimately is the empowerment. And our people learn very fast. And we should empower this farmer. Is the worst hit. He's been hit for the centuries. He has been hit in the recent last 70 years too. How to empower him? Enable him to export. Our goods, like our agricultural commodities, are the cheapest in the world when you convert them into dollars. And milk, for example, is 1/6 the price in Europe. But he doesn't have pasteurizing capability, he doesn't have bottling capability, he doesn't have an airfield nearby. He's not but if he's empowered by being able to use the internet, and the government assists him by building cold storages, small airfields in every district, those are ways in which he would then be in a position to do it. In terms of innovation, our people are unbeatable. You come to Bombay, have you heard of the Dabba? Dabbawala, you see? I mean, I can't believe it when I see it. Just on four numbers, they are able to pick up a tiffin carrier prepared by the wife of the worker, his hot lunch, bring it to his office, deliver it, pick it up again, and deliver it back. And in millions of, millions would be the wrong word, say about 500,000 of them, he does it in the city of Bombay. And you can Google it and read about it. This innovative capacity, this diligence, this intelligence, this native intelligence is all there. It's a question of now motivating that to its full.
So while we open it up, I'm having difficulty reconciling what you're saying. So on one hand, you're arguing that if there was pasteurization, this guy could be selling his milk. On the other hand, you're not opening up the country to foreign investments. Why would you not open it up and people with money go create these plants and storehouses and warehouses? And
people open up for foreign investment, anything as long as it's a level playing field. We can't, if you have already an ongoing industry in our country and you say, okay, you can come, there should be a level playing field. You should have half a chance to compete with them. Who comes from abroad.
Okay, there is a definition of a level playing field.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, this is great. All right, sir.
You've covered a broad spectrum, and that's totally your capability, which very few people have, from religion to economics to social to Hindu mythology. On that subject, you touched on the status of women, and so what is the chance of India having a uniform civil code? Because that will answer a lot of questions, and including will touch on economics, touch on security, touch on the status of women as per se.
As far as the Hindu community is concerned, there is just no difference in inheritance law. There is no difference in marriage law. There's no way a man can divorce his wife and wife not divorce his husband. The problem only arises with the Islamic community. Uniform Civil Code is an article for implementation in the Constitution. The Constitution, Article 44, says that there shall be a uniform civil code. And the Constituent Assembly debates when they're making the Constitution said that this is extremely important, it's a fundamental principle of governance. But electoral politics found when in the electoral politics what we found was the Muslims who are about 14%, they voted as a bloc. And the Hindu community, which is 80%, did not vote as a bloc. They were divided in caste, region, language, all kinds of divisions. So it made sense to pander to the Muslim community for electoral purposes because the clerics in Islamic community are dead against this uniform civil code. They say we want our own code, and that includes being able to divorce your wife by reciting, even by SMS, talaq, talaq, talaq. So now the women are, I'm happy to say, the Muslim women have come out on the roads, and the Supreme Court has taken it very seriously. Our government has filed an affidavit saying that we support the abolition of divorce by a male saying just talaq, 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 talaq. So it's coming, it's unstoppable. And the Muslim women want it, educated people of all communities want it. And the other new thing is that previously the Hindu vote was fractured, now there is a consolidation taking place. So everybody wants to be on the right side of this consolidation. And you will find even Rahul Gandhi going to temples and doing prayers even though he's a Christian. So, and I found Mulayam Singh Yadav talking about Ram Rajya, you see. So there is, the Hindu community votes as a bloc, then nobody else will have a chance. So everybody will have to pander to it. That's the new development, and that happened with us. For first time after 33 years, a party got a single party majority because our vote went up from 21% to 31%, only on this consolidation of Hindu votes. So therefore these things will be implemented.
So let me ask this: if people vote as a bloc, does a democracy still remain a democracy, or at what point does the democracy go away if everybody votes as a bloc?
But they don't have to remain as a bloc once you get elected. And then you...
Okay.
And that's what happens.
No, I understand, but I think this is the problem, right? I mean, you're fighting the Muslim politics with their strategy, and the Hindus are much larger in number, so clearly the numbers will subsume the smaller minority population.
Yeah, if they vote as a bloc, yes, certainly. But we are not ones who have actually created the bloc or the growing bloc in the Hindu vote. It's the people's revulsion that archaic practices vis-a-vis the women, that they should be kept in parda, that they should be educated. There are mullahs are practicing, propagating that. Women will be subject to rape if they start going around in scanty clothes.
Right.
So there's a revulsion of that, and therefore and I'm telling you, women as on this triple talaq question, Muslim women are en bloc voting for us. On the grounds that we will deliver it. So it's not a purely religious phenomenon.
Let's go to the young woman out there, so.
Hello, sir. I have actually 3 questions.
No, one question.
Okay, so if I want to go with one question, nowadays it's a fashion to... Okay.
So one opportunity for you guys is to take Dr. Swami. So we'll have only 2 questions now, and after that we'll have a photo ops.
Okay, this one and one more.
Yes, sir.
Okay, no, I'm gonna go with the lady out. She's a VIP, so we can do Okay, go ahead.
Okay, nowadays it's the fashion to dominate Hinduism. like in the different ways, like festival celebration and whatnot. So what are your thoughts on that? And one more question I would like to ask, sorry, that Augusta Westland, I know your views on that, so where are we on that to suffocate Augusta Westland case?
Oh, Westland.
Yeah, so where are we on that to suffocate the Congress government on that? Thanks.
Well, the first question I couldn't quite understand. You were saying you were asking for?
Mainly about the ban right now going on Tamil Nadu, like...
Oh, the Jallikattu. Jallikattu. Well, the Jallikattu is a problem that the lady there had raised. There were animal rights groups, NGOs, which were actually Indians, US-born citizens of the United States who had set it up. And they targeted Jallikattu, and the Congress government, the previous Congress government, obliged by bringing out a geo saying that bulls cannot be part of any sport. So it was easy for the Supreme Court to ban Jallikattu. Now, after our government came to power, now see, Jallikattu, for those who don't know what this term means, it's not bullfighting like you see in Spain. What happens is that on one particular day, that's the 14th of January, the bull is let loose, and villagers try to hug the bull and try to control it with the bare hands, no weapons, nothing. And of course, the people get hurt by it. I have not heard of a single case where the bull has been hurt. However, the animal rights groups say that in order for the bull to get ferocious, people bite their tails, I mean, before they're let out of that enclosure, maim their tails, throw red chilies or Tabasco sauce on their private parts and that sort of thing. Now, these are not documented, but these allegations were made. Now, but the court was bound by the fact that since the government has issued a government order that in the list of banned, a ban in the use of animals for sport purposes, bull was not there, they introduced it. So the court had an easy way. So we reintroduced a new government order saying no, bulls can participate in festivals which does not cause violence, and it could be used for service. So we just restored the old position. So that judgment became null and void. So challenging that order of our government, the same animal rights group went to the court. The court said, all right, we'll hear you. And till that time, a stay, an injunction order was passed. So there's an injunction order on the BJP government's notification, and which means that the old notification still continues till the hearing is over. The judgment has not come. Now, I was asked by almost all the villagers that I should intervene in the matter. I did intervene in favor of Jallikattu being allowed, that is this festival being allowed. And I argued many things. And the Supreme Court judges said to me, when I raised something about vegetarianism, they said, well, you see, there is something called essential violence and inessential violence. Essential violence is that you want food, so you have to cut the head off of the chicken. You have to kill the cow. I mean, not the cow is banned under the Constitution, but say goat or sheep. And these are essential violence. The inessential violence that the bull is being subject to in this game, That we cannot allow. So I said in that case, you must not allow halal meat also, because it's inessential. If you want food, you can kill an animal in a more human way. How are you allowing halal, which requires bleeding the animal till it dies of loss of blood, and they consider that meat to be superior meat, and that's what I think the Jews also call as kosher, I think. Then the judges were stumped, and they said, you give us in writing all your arguments. So I give them a 23-page argument. And the delay is because of my arguments. And I can tell you this, even if they give an adverse order, we'll bring out another government order nullifying that judgment. But I have run into a problem. For almost 2 decades, Tamil terrorists have targeted me, and during the British period, there was a party, an organization floated by the British, which targeted the Brahmins. And there's Brahmins because the Brahmins are the forefront of the freedom movement, so they wanted to put them in difficulty. That crowd is still there. It's been funded by drug mafia and all that. It's a small number, but they are now making out that I'm doing this for re-establishing my Brahmanical supremacy. There's no such thing as a born Brahmin, according to me. It's by your occupation that you get this Varna name, but a lot of degeneration has taken place in our caste system. So that group is trying to create an animosity, because they are also secessionists. So they are trying to create an animosity to the central government, saying the central government is doing nothing because they're all Aryans. This is another bogus theory that we have, that India, there was an invasion from Europe, and they came through Khyber Pass, and the whole of India was being ruled by Dravidians, and they were driven south, and the Aryans occupied the north. There's no such word called Aryan in any of our scriptures. The closest word we have is Arya. So that only means cultured person, and that applies to men and women. So all these foggy ideas, you see, these crazy ideas which have been fed into the brain through our history books, which are written by Britishers to create a inferiority complex in Indian minds, which we are now going to revise, and there's a lot of protest on that also from the left wing. But therefore, these things happen. But you see, the healthy part is that we are still doing it through the court system. There are some, there's been so far no violence, even though there's an attempt to fan it and target people like me, even though I supported in the courts the delegate. So this is the background. It's a kind of case study of how social change happened. Let me tell you that there was a question whether women should be allowed in the sanctum sanctorum of a temple. Unanimously all Hindus said yes. The priest fought tooth and nail, and ultimately they surrendered, and now women have equal rights to go to the sanctum sanctorum of the temple. So there's a lot going on in these matters, and we have to fight it all the way.
Let's go with one more question from the audience.
Okay, as you know, Ekal Vidyalaya is doing a lot of work in changing the economy in rural India. So I was wondering if you have Ekal Vidyalaya.
Oh, Ekal Vidyalaya.
Yes. So if there is some kind of a guideline that you could tell that how Ekal could improve on their mission and their work that's going on in the rural area.
Doesn't Ekal Vidyalaya have the support of RSS?
No, not really. It's an independent.
Yeah, it's true, but it has support of RSS. Then you don't need me. That's a massive organization.
It is a massive organization, but as an economist, I thought maybe...
No, it's true. The Ekal Vidyalaya, I have more known it for illiteracy. removal of illiteracy.
Yes, but they're also now moving to the development of...
Yeah, empowering the self-employed.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh yeah, they are highly motivated people. They don't need me. They don't need public.
I'm glad you said that. They asked me to give a keynote on Saturday. Maybe I won't do it. Because they don't need me either. No, we're done with the questions. So
RSS is a good organization. I think you should join it.
I know. So I just want to close with one thing. So I was recently in India, and one of the controversies there was the government meddling with Supreme Court appointees or not appointing. So if you have any last parting thoughts on that.
I have a parting thought. I'm totally with the Supreme Court. I think we have a dumb Attorney General who should be sacked. And the issue is this. I've been a law minister. And when I was law minister, I had absolute power to appoint anybody as judge. And we didn't even have this hearing system that the Americans have. Here the president has the power to nominate. But they go through this hearing system. And some people have not been cleared in that hearing system. It's a very robust hearing system that the Senate committee, I think. We don't have that. We didn't have that. And I could appoint anybody I liked. It was being subject to misuse. So one day somebody filed a PIL, the public interest litigation, which you in America call as class action, excuse me. And the Supreme Court said, yes, we file fundamental rights are abridged by this. So we'll create a collegium of judges. They will select, and the government may approve or disapprove. And that was going on. Now, when our government came, no, it was the Congress government, which felt that, after all these corruption cases where I won these cases on the telecom and others, they felt that the judges are getting a bit too uppity and there should be some control. And so they brought in something called National Judicial Commission, Accountability Commission, or Appointments Committee or something, in which the majority of the members would be from the government and the minority would be from the judiciary. And the judiciary didn't approve. And the matter, somebody filed a petition, so Supreme Court declared it as unconstitutional. Now that's where the tug of war is going on. The government sends a list, and the judges send it back, saying these are not fit cases of appointment of judges. And I'm totally in sympathy with the judges, because the quality of people who were recommended were very poor. And I've told the Prime Minister, call the Chief Justice to your house for dinner, or go to his house for dinner and talk it out. And give the majority to the judges. And the Prime Minister will be one of the members. I can't see that everything is going to be done by majority. It will be done by consensus. And work out a understanding. I think that's what we're going to do. So.
Right, so this is great. So please join me in thanking Dr. Swami. Thank you so much.
So